Good morning, everyone. How's it going? Uh-oh, I'm not hearing the voices. How's it going? All right, that's progress. How's it going? Thank you. All right, I just want to thank you guys this morning for taking your time to join us on the Diversity and Inclusion Conference. We have an amazing here today to share with us. Before I read her biography here, I just want to talk about little things, housekeeping stuff. First of all, make sure that you got breakfast or lunch. Make sure to make good use of it. Secondly, there's a feedback form that we gave to you. We really want to hear your honest feedback about what you think about the program so that we can better serve you guys next time. So make sure to fill that out. If you're leaving before time, just be gentle, and there's going to be somebody here. Just walk out quietly and hand the paper, and then you can leave. The conference is scheduled, so this session is going to be the keynote session, but there's two more to follow. Those of you who missed the morning session, you can join the afternoon session, and it's going to be back and back. So there's one at 2:30, and then there's one at 5, I believe 5 o'clock. So if you miss the morning session and this session, then you still have the chance to participate. I also want to mention that there are empty tables right here. So if you guys can fill out the front, that would be great, because she's feeling like she's picking two empty seats at the front. So if you guys can move to the back and fill out the front seat, it will make it more welcoming. Some of you have asked her and myself about the book that she talked about in the morning, the 35 Damn Things Well-Intended People Say, and you were asking where you can find the books. She has a website. It's called thediversityspeaker.com. It will also show on her slide when she's presenting at the bottom there, so you can just write it down. So now I'm going to read, give you a little bit introduction about the keynote speaker. Dr. Maura Cullen is widely considered one of the nation's foremost authorities on issues of diversity and inclusion. With over 30 years of experience as a trainer and keynote speaker, she received her doctorate in social justice and diversity education from the University of Massachusetts. Maura is a founding faculty member of the Social Justice Training Institute and author of 35 Damn Things Well-Intended People Say. She has also coached basketball and volleyball at the collegiate level. When not at home in Maryland, you will mostly likely find Maura on an adventure skydiving, snowboarding, and swimming with dolphins or firewalking. You can visit Maura at thediversityspeaker.com and learn more about Maura. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Cullen.
And let's give it up for this special man who has, who has worked tirelessly to make sure that my every need is met. So thank you. Good day to you. And again, and thanks for the food and whoever paid for that. We thank you. So we're going to get shaken right away. From the last presentation, so this morning's presentation is different than this one. The next one will be the same as this morning's, so it's every other one. And there's going to be a number that you can text that if you want this PowerPoint, you're welcome to have it. So you just need to text. And if you don't have texting capability, then you can email me. You can do this. All right. What I would like for you to do right now, though, is I'm going to throw some numbers up on this screen. All I ask, add the numbers out loud together. Got it? Good. Here we go. Right. Well, I caught you by surprise. That wasn't fair. Okay, here we go. 40. Don't forget to add them. We're at 1,040. There we go.
2,070. 3,070. 3,090. 4,090. 5,000.
Some folks got it right over here. The correct answer is 4,100. What? Wait, what? You were absolutely right. Right till there. It was, as you had said, 4,090. Picture that. 4090. Add 10. Da-da! Some of you still aren't getting this, are you? I'll leave it up here for a while longer. Hey, raise your hand if you got the correct answer, because I heard...
She threw me off.
You got it right? Outstanding. Anyone else? Oh, brilliant. All right, so for the rest of us, if I had asked you, hey, take out a piece of paper, jot these numbers down, take your time, add them up, you would have gotten the right answer. Not what happened, though. You took these same very simple numbers, which you're fully capable of adding, and the only difference is you did it out loud as a group. So something happened in that dynamic. Have you ever done something in a larger group that ended up being wrong that you probably would not have done if people left you alone? Same is true in real life. Sometimes this whole notion of kind of group think, which is kind of a misnomer, but what happens is sometimes we allow other folks, particularly when it comes to stereotypes. With stereotypes, most of us believe them because we think this many people couldn't be wrong. 5,000. In real life, this many people, when it comes to stereotypes, are more wrong than right. I'm going to throw up another image. Shout out what you see when you see it, please. Help each other see the duck and the bunny. Duck too. Duck and a bunny. Okay, I will leave this up here a moment longer for those of you who are a bit abstractly challenged. Okay? Or maybe you saw something else. The point of this is as soon as you laid eyes on this image, you were able to make sense of it somehow. And if you took a moment longer or you heard someone else's perspective, you saw something more. Same is true for us. As soon as we lay eyes on one another, we begin to think thoughts. But just like this figure is multidimensional, so are we. What you see isn't always what you get, but in real life, what happens too much is that we get stuck in seeing you with only one dimension. We get stuck in seeing the duck, and we don't or we won't see anything else. It happens a lot, particularly in a political season where we are currently in the midst of, right? And where we start to get polarized about, you know, Democrat, Republican, Independent, free, whatever. Like, but usually it's like two. And so let's say then, you know, you see a colleague get out of their car and they have a bumper sticker, right? And you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, right? Like things that surprise you. And it's okay that things surprise you. That's human nature. We react. It's what you do once this stuff comes up, that's what makes the difference. So if I were to give you all $50,000, oh, and by the way, this is a tweet-friendly zone. My handle is right there at Dr. Maura Cullen. Sweet tweets are preferable, but do what you must. So if I gave you all 50 grand, go buy a car, bring it back, I want to see what you got. There's going to be a variety of cars in the lot. Why? Simple. We like some cars more than others. The same is true for people. We like some of you more than others of you. But that's not a coincidence, and that's what we're going to take a look at. One reason you might buy one car over another is the size of the car, right? Do you want a compact, mid-size, or a luxury model? Cars come in different sizes. So don't we people. But depending on what size container your body lives in determines way too much. Sometimes it determines who our friends will be, who our colleagues are, and who we fall in love with. Is this a truth at times? Absolutely. So, when we begin to think, okay, so my sister lost 187 pounds, okay? And I asked her, Colleen, how has your life changed, if at all, since you lost so much weight? She said, Maura, there are a whole bunch of ways. But if I were to group it all together, she said, the bottom line are people are nicer to me now that I'm thinner. She said, people hold the door for me, they remember my name more, they engage in conversation, they smile at me, they'll even buy me a cup of coffee. She says, on and on. And she said, you know what? It's not right. How many of you would agree? It's not right, right? We all know intellectually it's not nice, it's not right. But it really doesn't stop us from doing anything. We just keep on doing it. And it's just not weight, it's height. We make judgments based on I don't know how many times I have heard heterosexual women say, oh, I can't date him, he's too short. You know, and sometimes it's like an inch. Or maybe they're just an inch taller, but no, they hit a standard. You know, and today with the green ribbons, this is about height discrimination, right? Is that sometimes we judge people simply on the size of their containers. And not only judge, but discriminate. You know, it's one thing to be discriminatory, but it's a whole other thing, you know, things like in an airplane. Who has to, you know, people who are large, should they get paid for 2 seats if they take up more than their share? That was a big quandary for airlines, because that's one less seat that they could sell. And so, but it's one person. And so, do you see how, and so they institutionalize things at times. And sometimes it comes down to a business model, unfortunately, but still, we can do better. Oh, I have a magic trick. Who would be so kind to help me with my magic trick? We have our first volunteer. Yes. Give us a warm welcome here. Susan. Now, Susan, I have some things in my magic bag. Would you take them out and show folks what you have, please? Oh. The girl's got some flair.
And another one.
Now, what's one of the first things you notice about these things? Looking for colors. Typically, what we notice first is colors. In every other ways, these things are the same. How they differed was color. The same is true for us. We have a lot more in common with one another than that which differs, but what we tend to notice are differences first. Does that make us bad people? No, it's how our minds are wired. We notice difference. Noticing, and you'll hear me say this several times, noticing, never the problem. It's what we do that once we notice, is everything. All right. Please put them back into my magic bag. All right. And I'll try to show as many of you as I can, and then I will ask Miss Susan to verify. Are they still in there? Do you need to take them out to re-verify, or are you good to go?
I'm good.
All right. Now, do you know kind of like any magical words or motions? All right. Actually, could you take them out one more time for me? I'm sorry. Now we have to bow. Thanks, Susan. Just like we can make silks appear and disappear, so can we make one another appear and disappear. It is through our acts of cruelty, of ignoring, of ridicule, that we render people invisible. And it is through our acts of kindness, of inclusion, that we make people reappear. All of us, in a sense, are magicians. We just have to figure out how you are going to work your magic. Another way, say what? Do you really expect me to answer you? Good luck with that. Another way we sometimes make people appear and disappear is color. Cars obviously come in different colors, and so don't we people. But at times, depending on what color this stuff is, determines a lot. Would you agree here in the United States, what we tend to do about race is make it a black and a white thing? And we render invisible a whole lot of folks. Asians, we clump them like there's one group. More Asians in the world than any other number of people. Hispanics, Latinos, Latinas, we clump them like there's one group. We clump black folks, we think all blacks are African Americans. Thanks for playing. We clump white people, we think whites have no culture, we're just this mass glob of whiteness. We have Cape Verdeans, Pacific Islanders, East Indians, West Indians, Native Americans, the list goes on for an eternity. And many of us are multiracial. But again, depending on what color this stuff is, determines so much. If one day you woke up and your skin color was different, would your life be different? Oh yeah, way different. Sometimes it would be way different. Typically the people who say color doesn't matter or I don't see color, guess what color they typically are, right? White folks, you know, you won't hear many folks of color saying, oh yeah, race doesn't matter, okay? Because they feel the impact of it most every day. So I worked at the University of Massachusetts, and I was a residence hall director. And one of my RAs, her dad died. She's an African American woman, and I decided to go down to Queens, New York to pay respects to she and her family. I took with me two of her friends, also African American women on my staff. We arrive at the church, we're late. I walk in, I feel like I'm Kmart Blue Light Special. Like, whoop, attention shoppers, white woman in the church, right? I'm the only white person in the whole place, and because we're late, all the good seats were taken, and the only ones available were where? In the front. And there was an older gentleman standing up front, and he's going like this. It's like, mister, how much attention can you draw to me right now, right? And as I'm walking down the aisle, no longer am I white because I'm turning red from embarrassment. Certain people were saying, hey, check out the snowflake that just blew in. Like, what's that white girl doing here? And it took me like 10 minutes to relax. I was thinking, Maura, put it in perspective. The people gathered there were there to bury a loved one. And I thought they were focusing on me, total stranger. Not likely. I was focusing on me because in 28 years of living, I had never been the only regarding my color. And yeah, I wigged out a little bit. How many of you have ever been the only in a sea of different color folks than you? Now, would you agree? Some of us have that experience more often than others of us. But regardless of how often it happens, is it safe to say is that in that opening moment, you're more aware of your color? Right? It doesn't mean you stay focused on it, but for that moment, you have a heightened awareness. Can you then see why some people walk through this life or walk through this campus more aware of issues of race than others of us? Yeah, they're not being paranoid or sensitive. They just might be having a different experience. So on the way home, I was telling my two RAs how I was feeling. I said, you know, at the church, I felt awfully uncomfortable. And they were like, no. I said, save the sarcasm. It wasn't like I was having convulsions coming down the church aisles. They said, Maura, let's play a game, and you can play this game here. They said, imagine this place is a predominantly black institution. Every day you wake up to a sea of black faces, and you're white. You go to class, all your professors, they're black, except for the ones that teach white history. And it's like, you got to give them a point, though, right? The only time that black professor calls on you is to get the white perspective, like, you know, what do your people think, right? Like, all us white people, we have the same exact thoughts. Like, if you've asked one of us, you've asked all of us. That is so convenient, right? You leave the classroom, you go to the cafeteria to eat, hanging out with some of your white friends. Students of color taking on some attitude. They're like, look at all those whiteys clumping together like rice, like, ooh. How do they expect to get anywhere if they don't mix with the rest of us? But what the students of color fail to recognize is that they too are clumping. They just do it in bigger numbers. We are all clumpers. It is what human beings do, we clump. Chances are good you're sitting next to or near a clump of yours. All right? But what we need to realize is that we are multi-clumpable. You're parts of many clumps. But sometimes one clump tends to stand out more than another clump. And sometimes that clump is where you get judged the most. So you leave the cafeteria and you start to head home. And in the distance, another white person, you see them. You don't know this person from a hole in the wall, but it's like, hey, hi, or the knowing nod like, stop. Because even though you don't know, maybe you know one thing. Maybe you know what it's like to be one of the few on this campus. You know the looks, the assumptions being made, not just by students of color, but by some faculty and staff of color too. They think all us white folks are here to fill a quota. Bing, nice job. They needed X amount of white folks here in order to be federally funded. And because we're not a terribly bright group to begin with, they had to lower their standards to let the few of us in. It's so hard to find a qualified white applicant. It doesn't matter if you're the best and the brightest, gang, because as soon as people lay eyes on you, they begin to think thoughts and that you didn't deserve to get in here like they did. Or maybe we're here due to our athleticism. Us white folks, we are known for our athleticism. Please give me some popular white sports. Golf, tennis, volleyball. Oh, not so much. Skiing and snowboarding, bowling, synchronized swimming, and diving, right? Or equestrian, or rodeo, or crew. I mean, we could go on and on. That's how athletic we are. And it doesn't matter how supportive your friends of color try to be. And the poor things, they try so hard. They say things like, some of my best friends are white. Good for you. Like, what does that mean when we say that? You know, like if you know one or you got one as a friend, then you couldn't discriminate? No, Maura, that's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is I don't see color. I'm colorblind. Help me with this. In order for you to actually acknowledge you don't notice something, typically what occurs first? Yeah, you notice it. Noticing, and I think this is at least the third time I have said this, noticing is never the problem. It's the actions we take after we notice that can be the game changer. Magic trick. And no, you won't be able to see this either. Nobody likes a whiner, okay? All right. Would you agree well-intended people can cause harm? Okay, and probably I have to be up here so everyone can see the trick. Sometimes when we start to talk about issues of race, what some well-intended people do is whitewash it. Oh, I don't see color, we're all part of the same race, the human race. And that's a lot of white. Then, as I have said, here in the United States, what we tend to do about race is make it a black and a white issue, which is at least a little better because there's someone else showing up on those pages. But the real deal is this. We all come in different colors and shades. That's a fact. So why don't we just acknowledge reality? Because yes, you guessed it, the real world looks a lot more like this. Ooh. This film is by Jay Smooth.
Race The final frontier. No matter what channel you watch, no matter what feed you aggregate, it seems like everybody everywhere is talking about race right now. And when everybody everywhere is talking about race, that means sooner or later you're gonna have to tell somebody that they said something that sounded racist. So you need to be ready and have a plan in place for how to approach the inevitable "that sounded racist" conversation. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. The most important thing that you've got to do is remember the difference between the "what they did" conversation and the "what they are" conversation. Those are two totally different conversations, and you need to make sure that you pick the right one. The "what they did" conversation focuses strictly on the person's words and actions and explaining why what they did and what they said was unacceptable. This is also known as the "that thing you said was racist" conversation, and that's the conversation that you want to have. The "what they are" conversation, on the other hand, takes things one step further and uses what they did and what they said to draw conclusions about what kind of person they are. This is also known as the "I think you are a racist" conversation. This is the conversation you don't want to have, because that conversation takes us away from the facts of what they did and the speculation about their motives and intentions, and those are things you can only guess at, you can't ever prove, and that makes it way too easy for them to derail your whole argument. And that is the part that's crucial to understand. When you say, "I think he's a racist," that's not a bad move because you might be wrong. That's a bad move because you might be right. Because if that dude really is racist, you want to make sure you hold him accountable and don't let him off easy. And even though intuitively it feels like the hardest way to hit him is just run up on him and say, "I think your ass is racist," when you handle it that way, you're actually letting him off easy, because you're setting up a conversation that's way too simple for him to derail and duck out of. Just think about how this plays out every time a politician or a celebrity gets caught out there. It always starts out as a "what they did" conversation, but as soon as the celebrity and their defenders get on camera, they start doing judo flips and switching it into a "what they are" conversation. "I have known this person for years, and I know for a fact that they are not a racist, and how dare you claim to know what's inside their soul just because they made one little joke about watermelon tap dancing and going back to Africa." And then you try and explain that we don't need to see inside their soul to know that they shouldn't have said all that about the watermelon, and you try to focus on the facts of the situation, but by then it's too late, because the "what they are" conversation is a rhetorical Bermuda Triangle where everything drowns in a sea of empty posturing until somebody just blames it all on hip-hop and we forget the whole thing ever happened. Don't let this happen to you. When somebody picks my pocket, I'm not going to be chasing him down so I can figure out whether he feels like he's a thief deep down in his heart. I'm going to be chasing him down so I can get my wallet back. I don't care what he is, but I need to hold him accountable for what he did. And that's how we need to approach these conversations about race. Treat them like they took your wallet and focus on the part that matters, holding each person accountable for the impact of their words and actions. I don't care what you are. I care about what you did.
That was helpful for me when I heard him. Hopefully it's helpful to you. Another way we make people appear and disappear is money. I'm going to give you 3 options. I would like for you to stand when I get to the option that most closely resembles your experience, particularly growing up, because economic class can change, but values tend to hang in there a little bit. Let me tell you the 3, then I'll come back. I was raised in a family with more than enough financial resources, enough financial resources, not enough financial resources. I know it's limiting, and particularly folks who may have come out of homes that were divorced, or you grew up in 2 different families, or foster care, or adopted. Just do the best you can. Please stand if you're raised in a family with more than enough financial resources. All right. Thank you. You may sit. Enough. And thank you. You may sit. Not enough. And thank you. You may sit. Besides, it was nice to stretch for a quick moment. How else did it feel to have to stand up? Bueller? Bueller?
I felt comfortable with it. It's
Comfortable or uncomfortable?
comfortable.
Comfortable?
Yeah. It's a part of my life that I'm still finding.
Okay. And which time did you stand up?
Like middle.
Okay. And this is kind of a reminder to me. Would you agree that the middle people are usually the safest, easiest, like, that they're less likely to receive judgment than people on the other ends? Typically, that sometimes happens. But when you have these discussions, it becomes easier no matter which. What else? Please.
I felt weird because I started judging myself. Like I stood up in the first group because feel like I haven't lived up to that kind of an upbringing.
Wow, right? And it is great to reflect, like when you stand up, like what are you thinking, you know? Because what is enough is relative, correct? I mean, you bring some different people in this room, all of a sudden many of us are thinking, oh, I've had more than enough, right? But what we do is then we interpret that and bring meaning to it. Okay? And we judge. And we judge. You might see or perceive me differently if I were introduced as the president, the chancellor, versus a custodial person here. Would you agree? That happens, okay? That happens. It's just kind of automatic, like thoughts come up. But then we make meaning of those thoughts. And unfortunately, how that plays out is some people get more respect than other people because of the meaning we make of it. So one of the, when I was an RD, some of the students wreaked havoc in one of the residence hall lounges. Like there was urination, defecation, broken balls. The place was an absolute disaster. And so I gathered up the 32 residents of that floor and said, who's responsible for this mess? And they were like, I don't know. I said, fine, be that way. Tell me who's going to clean this mess up. And one of them said, Ellie. Well, who do you think Ellie was? Custodial person, janitor, right? I said, okay. I said, I just want to make sure we're speaking about the same person. Ellie at the time, my best guess was about 62. And she was responsible for 3 floors, about 100 residents, okay? 100 students. And what she did is she learned the names and birthdays of each of those residents. And when it was their birthday, she made them some baked goods and gave them a card. Then when it was finals time, she made each floor a big banner wishing them well, and then she made more baked goods. I said, hey, is that the same Ellie you're referring to? And the chucklehead said, yeah, that'd be her. Right. Wow, right? The arrogance. He just did it unapologetic. You know how sometimes you get stunned, like you can't believe people just said or did something? So I know I was stunned a little bit. And then I waited a little longer because I was waiting for something. What do you think I was waiting on? Yeah, for somebody to step up. Did it have to be the clowns who did it? No. That would have been nice, but you know, but it could have been anyone. Anyone could have stepped up. But what peer pressure has is good people making bad choices. And that's what happened that day. And I said, you know what? You disappoint me. I said, Ellie's not going to clean this mess up. You're big kids. She'll give you all the cleaning supplies you need. Clean up your own mess. How many of you have ever literally or figuratively cleaned up after other people's messes? Right? It gets old fast. But we also know that people have cleaned up after our messes. And the trick is to try to lessen the impact on other people. So I came back, and in the interim I learned it was two of the students and some of their off-campus friends. I said, I only have one question for you today. I said, I want to know who cleaned up the mess. Was it the 2 responsible or the rest of you? It's like you haven't learned a thing. Peer pressure cuts both ways. It can be used as a force for good. How many of you have ever done any volunteerism? And particularly for more traditionally aged college adults, their generation has the highest rate of civic volunteerism than any generations that preceded it. They have set a new standard and expectation. Like, if you didn't volunteer, you'd be seen as a loser, right? Because why? Because they raised the bar higher. But no matter how old we are, we all experience peer pressures. True? And so the trick is, just like that 5,000, Sometimes peer pressure has good people making bad choices. Everyone, take a deep breath. Breathing is good. Another way we make people appear and disappear sometimes is around this model gender. Typically, when we think gender, historically we think two categories, male and female, right? Who are we rendering invisible? Okay. Everyone else, right? And folks who are trans, gender non-conforming, gender queer, right? There's just a whole lot of folks who feel left out of the conversations. How many of you, by a show of hands, know someone who is transgender? Chances are you probably do. Everyone probably does, but you don't know this. And I know some of you think, oh no, Maura, I would know. Clueless. Okay? So, do you think our transgender friends face a few extra challenges than the rest of us? And what are some of them? What are some challenges? Please. Restrooms, right? It's an easy but significant example. How many, would you agree that some people, you don't even have to agree, it's the truth, so forget how I get. The truth is, some people have been physically assaulted, even murdered, for using a restroom that someone else has deemed gender inappropriate. So the male-female things, men, women, that's how we usually put, okay. Now, when they're long stalls, that's sometimes a harder thing, because then we have to deal with people's attitudes, than when it's a single stall, right? The single stall stuff is an easy fix, but that doesn't mean people fix it. Now, imagine that you go to a gas station or rest stop, right? And you have to go to the bathroom really bad. And there's, men and women bathrooms. Your restroom is being occupied, but the other one is free. How many of you have used the other restroom? Right, but we come out, we're like, I gotta go quick, right? The thing is this, wouldn't it be better if instead of saying women and men, that we just said restrooms? Right? When we make it more accessible for some folks, we make it more accessible for all folks. So what else besides restroom might be challenges? Please. Identity. And there's a lot behind that one word, right? Identity. Say again? The legal system. Healthcare is huge. He's on a roll, right? Locker rooms, athletic teams. DMV, right? And that's a piece of the identity. Forms, right? There is a host of things that are on their plate that aren't on many of our plates. Things that we just take for granted because we are privileged in that identity. Everyone here, I don't care what your identity makeup, I can promise you in some part of your life you have privilege over another group of people. And a lot of times we want to focus on the times that we're not in the privileged group. And my challenge is the real learning comes when you have to look at your own privilege. Please stand with the following statement. Please stand if you, because when we think another traditionally gender cut, a lot of times when we think about issues of suicide, there tends to be a gender split, a more traditional one. Females are more likely to make suicidal gestures. Men, however, are more likely to complete suicide. Please stand if you know someone who has either attempted or completed suicide, and remain standing, please. and take a look around. I always just want you to get a sense of people's experience. Of the folks who are standing, please remain standing if any of these folks completed suicide. Wow. That's a lot of people in this room, would you agree? Please sit, and I'm sorry for our losses. This is the hardest part of the program, and I promise you I won't be here this long. But it's critical to get the point across. There is a plethora of reasons about why people attempt suicide. One of them, I think, has to do with the invisibility factor. Like, if I weren't here, who'd miss me? Well, we know who misses them, right? But the number one reason is depression. The good news about depression, it is one of the most highly treatable, not curable, treatable illnesses that exist. That is fantastic news. The downside, it's still so stigmatized that people are not getting the help that could literally save their lives. For those of us who have suicide in our suicide touches everyone. Even the people who didn't stand, I would bet a lot of money you do know someone, you just don't know this about them. How many would agree with the following statement? I believe acts of cruelty, even verbal cruelty, can take lives. If you believe that, what else am I hoping you believe? Right? Acts of kindness can save them. Do they have to be big acts? Nope. Nope. Small acts. And for those of us in this room who have had friends and family leave us that way, it is not your fault. It is not your fault. Okay. Everyone, take a deep breath. Cross your arms, please. Cross your arms. Okay, now cross them the other way. And do it a few more times, please. All right, now stop. Some of you are going to hurt yourselves, right? Some of you are like, whoa, whoa. Now, the first time you did it was comfortable, right? You didn't even think about it. A lot of us just stand or sit like this, and we don't even think about it. This is your default. When we liken that to our real lives, these are your peeps. These are the people you hang out with, that you feel comfortable with. These are the issues you like talking about, you know, your comfort. But when I asked you to switch it up, some of you were all of a sudden staring at your arms like they no longer are attached to your body, and you're like, whoa, right? This wasn't as comfortable. And you had to be really intentional about it, right? You had to think about it. This is how some people in some situations are like in your life. You have to think about the situation, and it feels awkward or uncomfortable. And our temptation is always to go back to what feels comfortable. It's understanding. It's understanding that we understanding that we do that, right? But the thing is this: like anything else, the more you do something, the easier it becomes. And there is a huge upside to be able to mix it up. And the huge downside is we just tend to hang out with people and places that we feel comfortable in. Everyone, take a deep breath. Another way we make people appear and disappear sometimes is this foreign or domestic. How many people here are not from the United States? All right, so I would just like to bring voice to that in the room. So nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. So if you could raise your hand and just share where you're from, that would be great. Puerto Rico. Oh, and also any U.S. territories, like we own you, but we don't give you all the rights that everyone else, yeah.
I'm from Peru.
Peru? Ghana? Mexico? India? Brazil? India? I didn't hear that. Philippines? Egypt? Iran?
West Africa, Ivory Coast.
West Africa, Ivory Coast. Anyone else? Wait, what'd you say? Georgia. In India? Pakistan? Saudi Arabia? Wait, why didn't you do it when I was over there? No! From Marshall Island? Thailand? El Salvador? All right. Do you think our international friends face a few extra challenges than the domestic people? And what are some? Extra challenges. Language. Let's look at that. Please stand if you can speak or sign more than one language. In more than like, hola, Pepe, like you could have a conversation. Okay, please stand if you can. Okay, so of the people, and remain standing. Of the people standing, raise your hand if you are not from the United States. You see my point here? All right. You may put your hand, don't sit yet. Because here in the United States, we do a horrendous job of, we do a great job of being monolinguistic. Of the people who are here and standing up, remain standing if you know 3 or more. 3 or more. Nice. 4 or more? Oh, it's going to be that way, right? 5 or more. And then there was 3. You got 6? How many you have? 6? Oh, winner with a chicken dinner. Wow, right? And here in the United States, instead of really seeing, wow, you know, people speak more than one language, I mean 6, 9 is like woof, right? Instead of seeing them as, in my eyes, they're like really smart because I can just speak one. What we do is we make meaning. Why? Because many of our international friends may have an accent, right? And it's the accents we fear. See if this resonates with you. I'll be talking to someone whose accent I have a hard time understanding, right? And they'll say something, I don't get it, right? And so I ask them to repeat it, and which they're kind enough to do, but still not getting it, right? So I asked them another time. I said, I'm really sorry. Could you just say that one more time a little slower for me, please? Which they do. Still not getting it. I'm not going to ask them another time. So I go, oh. How many of you have done anything like that, right? Yes. You see, our comfort zone just shrank. Next time I see this person, what am I most likely to do? Avoid them. Danger, danger, right? We avoid them, right? I mean, Mama didn't raise no fool. Why would I make myself feel uncomfortable again? The thing is this. There's a few things I know about accents. First, all of us have one. How many of you think I have an accent? Okay. A couple people came up during the break and said, where are you from? I hear the accent, and I said, Massachusetts. Someone else from Mass here? Oh, thank you for that welcome. So everyone here has an accent, right? Who has the accent sometimes is determined by who's in the conversation and or where that conversation is being held. Does that make sense? The other thing I know about accents is the longer we listen to them, the easier they become to decipher. Have you experienced that? So logically speaking, the easiest conversation has already been completed. It takes patience on both people's end. What else besides language? Different cultural norms. What else? Money, currency. Food is huge. Immigration status. How many of you know folks who are undocumented students here? Okay. What else? Technology and access to technology.
Infrastructure, how to get things done.
How to get things done. Infrastructure. What else? Hmm?
The hours difference.
Oh, so time change? Time change, time zones, distance from home, holidays and holy days, cultural behaviors and norms sometimes, greetings, time is very relative, distance from one another, volumes, you know, we can go, and you're gonna, humor,
Yes.
religion, sarcasm, yeah, sarcasm. I didn't know everyone didn't get sarcasm. See, even there, right then. Dress. You're going to say what? Privileges and rights, right? Privileges and rights. Because here in the United States, we can be absolute crybabies until we read about something else and it's like, whoops, my bad, right? Privileges and rights.
I don't know if this goes with like infrastructure, but education.
Education, and again, the access to. And here in the United States, we think we're like the brightest in the world. Have you read where we exactly fall on some of those things? What else?
Family structure and also life expectations.
Okay. Family structure, because how things are configured. And I see this a lot, particularly in college communities where how the family is configured. Landlords intentionally create rules that leave out whole family structures of people who they view as different than them. You get that? Okay. So entertainment, absolutely, right? There are a litany of ways that people sometimes are left on the outside looking in. How many of you have ever laughed at a joke you didn't get? Right? It comes to that humor piece, right? And why do we laugh at jokes we don't get? Yeah, other people are laughing, we don't want to appear stupid or naive, right? For many of our international friends who aren't as familiar with kind of slang or some of the body language, they're often left on the outside looking in. And so, right, you know how bad you feel when you don't get it. Now imagine that it happens a lot. And sometimes we really have to take the time to explain, because that's the only way we learn. How many of you, religion is pretty important to you? Religion. How many of you, yeah, not so much religion, more spirituality? And how many of you, yeah, not so much either? Okay. Now, would you agree that on this planet, some of the biggest wars have been and continue to be about religions? Right? That we literally kill one another in the name of what or whoever. Contradiction, it is to some, not for all. One person's terrorist is another person's martyr. One person's terrorist is another person's martyr. I did this in the last session, but it's worth doing again. Everyone, do what I'm doing, please. And it has to be over your head for this to work. And then in a clockwise direction, form a circle, and then bring it down to about waist level, and look at what direction it's heading in now. Should be counterclockwise, yeah? Feel free to do it again. Get it right. You can continue to do that in the privacy of your own home. Okay. You see, the thing is this. It's all about perspective. When you're down here looking up, you see it one way. But when you're up here looking down, you see it totally different. This never changed. What changed was your perspective. But it's hard for us to sometimes hold other people's perspective as being legitimate or right. But just because you don't think it's legitimate or right doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. And it absolutely doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Another way we make people appear and disappear is mileage. Some of you are like, yeah, oh yeah, I know that one. Okay, mileage. Would you agree, because this is a very different cultural norm, but here in the United States, as a whole, if you clumped us, would you agree that there's probably a disproportionate number of older folks who feel invisible? If you were to see older folks advertising products, what are they advertising? Wheelchair, such as the tubs you can get into, depends.
Fiber.
Say what?
Fiber.
Fiber, right, dentures, help me, I've fallen, I can't get up. I mean, right, really makes you look forward to getting older. How many of you have any living grandparents? How many of you don't? Grandparents. Have you ever sent an older person a card and that card sits on display for a period of time? Have you ever placed a card on display for a period of time? Have you ever read a card or a letter more than once? Didn't you understand it the first time? You understood it fine. It just made you feel better, right? It's the pictures you put on your phones or your computers or the way you decorate your homes and offices. Why? Because it makes you feel better. Today is Thursday, right? Today is Thursday. I'm going to give you I'll give you a week. I'll give you till next Thursday. I'm being generous. I want everyone here to send a card or a letter to someone who may be feeling invisible or someone to whom we owe a debt of gratitude, and we all owe gratitude. We didn't get to where we are in life all by our lonesome. Some people encouraged and supported us. And I want it done within a week because what we put off typically doesn't get done. And no virtual cards or emails. It's not that we don't appreciate them, we do, but would you grant me it's different? So I do a lot of new student orientations, and I always ask the incoming class to send a card or a letter. At the end of one of my presentations at Hamilton College in New York, a student came up to me and said, Maura, I was in your program last year, and you asked us to send a card or a letter. After you left, every Friday, I put into the mail a card or a letter to my grandmom. She said, when I was home visiting her, I noticed on her nightstand a shoebox full of my cards and letters. She said to me, every night before I sleep, I read one of your cards or letters. It's like a good night story. She said, my grandmom passed away last month, and here's the shoebox. I came back here to thank you, because if you didn't put the idea in my head, I'm not sure I ever would have done it. I only have one regret. What was it? Yeah, I didn't do it sooner. Not one of us here today are promised to be here tomorrow at this time. Truth? Nor are the people we love most on this planet guaranteed another day, but we take way too much for granted. We think tomorrow we'll tell them that we're sorry, or tomorrow we'll tell them that we love them. Tomorrow doesn't always come. So quit putting off to tomorrow what shall be done in a week. Get those cards and letters out, please. It'll make all the difference, not just for the person. And the other thing is this. When we send a card or a letter, what are we hoping for? To have somebody feel good. A response. Some sort of response. Maybe a text, an email, a call, a card, like something. You got to give me something. I just put out. You got to give me something. But when we don't get it, right, we get upset. It's kind of like when you're in traffic, right? But you're in the position of power, like you're on the main drag and traffic's really busy and somebody wants to come in, right? So you're like feeling really good day. So you're like, right? And they cut in. What do you expect? A wave, a nod, a smile, like thanks, right? And when we don't get it, what? We're like, stupid, 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 right? Right? We get all upset like they didn't thank us. In this scenario with the card, give it as a gift with no expectations. Just give it as a gift. Another way we make people appear and disappear is abilities. Some of us are born with a disability. Some of us, we get it later on. I have a friend who's a wheelchair user, and I asked her, Laura, what's the hardest part of having your disability? I assumed accessibility issues, that she couldn't get everywhere I could. She said that's a typical TAB response, and TAB is an acronym for temporarily able body. Temporary, why? Boom, could change on a dime. For those of us in this room currently without a disability, that could change today, right? We could be in an automobile accident. We could have an illness in us that we know nothing about that could change our lives and how people treat us. For those of you in this room currently without a disability, who currently have a disability, and I know you're here, 1 in 7 of us have a permanent disability, you could get some more, because illness, accident, and disease are an equal opportunity employer. She said, Maura, answer me some questions. She said, do you cut your own hair? And I got paranoid. I was like, no, I paid for this, right? She said, do you fix your own car? I said, no, I take it to the shop. She said, have you ever asked for help in lifting something that was heavy? I said, sure. It doesn't even have to be heavy. What's your point? She said, my point is you have limitations. And in order to achieve more, you must solicit the help of other good people. She said, I too have limitations. Some of mine are more obvious than some of yours. But why is it, Maura, when people see you, they see possibilities and potential? What can Maura do? But when people see me, or rather this wheelchair, they think, what can't I do? And the games begin. The biggest barrier is able-bodied people's attitudes. And the last one, image. Just a moment, please. If I was to pull up in a Toyota Prius, you might have a different image of me than if I pulled up in a Hummer, okay? The cars we drive, the way we dress, the jobs we have, that we attend college, all say something about your image. But too often, we don't want to be seen hanging out with these gays, lesbians, bisexuals, because if you're seen with one, what? You must be one too. No, it's stereotype, right? Raise your hand if you know and like or love someone who is either gay, lesbian, or bisexual. Okay. And would you agree we probably know more than we know, but we just don't know? See? And you followed that. You followed that just fine. So would you agree that we all have builders and breakers in our lives? And I'm trusting and hoping that some of your builders will be getting cards and letters in the mail real soon. This final story is about some builders in my life. It is my coming out story to my folks, so I'm lesbian. That's probably an important part of this story. So I was talking to my mom one day, and she was saying how her sister, my aunt, Auntie Minnie, was getting remarried. Auntie Minnie has a gay son, my cousin Gary. If Gary was permitted to bring his his partner to the wedding, then one of his other brothers wasn't going to show. I said, you think for one day they could set aside their differences, kind of fake it till you make it? She said, well, then there's your cousin Eddie, who's from another family. She said, he's gay too, you know. I said, Mom, you can't just make this stuff up. She said, I'm not. Your Auntie Margaret told me, another one of her sisters. She said, he's been living with a man for like 7 years. I was like, really? Because I am one, I think at some level I thought I could pick most of us out. Right? But the gaydar Mrs. Bleeps, right? And she said, well, Mar, just because two people of the same sex live together, it doesn't mean they're gay. I mean, look at you and Sue. Not a good example, right? And then I just blurted it out. I said, well, look at Sue and I, Mom. I said, well, we're gay. She said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I am. She said, Mar, I don't know when you're lying or when you're telling the truth. I said, Mom, I wouldn't lie over something this important. She said, well, why do you have that smirk on your face? And I did, I had a smirk. I said, Mom, I'm scared to death right now. Like, I don't know how you're going to react to this. You see, when my friend Kathy told her folks 11 years previous to this that she was lesbian, that was the day they buried her. They disowned her. She didn't see or speak to her folks in 11 years, during which time her father died, and she was not permitted to attend services. I said, I couldn't bear the thought of losing all of you, Mom. And she took a big, deep breath, and she said, she was like, I knew it. I just knew it. And she asked a wonderful question. She said, Mom, is it hard being lesbian? I said, Mom, some days I think some people were put on this planet to make my life a living hell. And they ought to be promoted because they do such a fine job. Like, people will intentionally spit on me, and they are like all in. It's like one of those, right? How many have ever been intentionally spit upon like that, right? It is nasty. I've been verbally harangued and harassed too many times to begin to recall. My physical property, my homes and cars, have been damaged repeatedly. My life has been literally threatened on 2 separate occasions, and what I have a hard time understanding is why so many heterosexuals are afraid of me, when my reality says I have so much more to fear of them. I said, Mom, there is this one thing kind of makes me sad. You know, heterosexuals have this wonderful institution, you know. In theory, sometimes in practice, it's called marriage, right? We women and men, we fall in love, we get engaged to be married. They throw us women a shower and we get, gifts, right? Then comes our wedding day, more gifts. And then we go away for a week or 2 on our honeymoons, right? It is a wonderful tradition. No wonder people do it like 2-3 times. And in our tradition, at the wedding reception, the bride does a solo dance with her dad, if she's fortunate enough to have a dad, or one she wishes to dance with. I said, I had selected my song to dance with Dad. I said, Mom, you know I love you a ton, but Dad holds a special place in my heart. You see, this could be the day I could show him off. He'd be thinking, he showed me off, Bobby showed him off. But that day won't come for me because freaks like me are not permitted to be legally wed. Now, the year is 2015 and the rules have changed. Back to the story. You know what I mean by that, right? Now people like me can get married. And I know not all people think that's a good thing, but too bad. Right? Because people experience, right, heterosexuals experience so much privilege that they never even think about it. And so now it's a little even. So anyways, we'll leave that. Now we go back to the story. So I said, Mom, it makes me sad I'll never have that special day or that special dance. I said, are you okay? Do you need a book, a video, self-help group? She was good to go. I go upstairs, and soon after I hear Dad come home, and I know my mom is like beeline to the door, Tom, news, right? And soon after I hear Dad coming up the stairs, and my heart's racing. He came up to me, he said, Moj, pet family name. He said, we love you so much. And one of these days, we're gonna have us that dance. And he gave me a hug and a kiss, and he walked away. That, my friends, is unconditional love. Not all of us have been graced with unconditional love, and that is through no fault of our own. The people who raise us, they're doing the best they can. But the bottom line, their best sometimes isn't even close to being good enough. And my wish for all is that you know what it's like to be loved unconditionally. But the deal is this, is once you got it, you got to give it. And you got to contaminate as many people with it as you possibly can, because not only can it change people's lives, it literally can save people's lives. We had that dance, my dad and I, at my sister Colleen's wedding. The DJ said, would Maura, Cullen, and her father please come to the dance floor? And I immediately began to cry. And like I knew it was about to take place, but I didn't know how it came about. So there I was going up to the dance floor, and thank goodness I had long sleeves on, because I was like, it wasn't my dress, no worries, right? And I said, Dad, did you request this song? He said, no, I thought you had. I couldn't figure it out. But as you recall, my mom knew my dream. And as she is my angel in the next life, she was my angel right here. And unbeknownst to me, she asked my sister Colleen if she'd be so kind to have the song, To Sir with Love, played, so I could dedicate it to Dad. Now, Colleen had been going around gripping and grinning, hey, thanks for coming, hope you gave me a lot of money kind of stuff, right? And she stopped what she was doing, and she watched my dad and I have this dance. And then our eyes caught. And when they did, she went like this. And in that moment, Colleen was like a little angel sent down to deliver me a dream. And however insignificant you think that dream was, it wasn't to me. And our takeaway message, it's simple. Each and every one of us here, we're somebody's angels. But you don't always know whose angels you're supposed to be. Some of those people are on this campus, needing an act of kindness or a recognition that they're not being treated fairly or right. Others are waiting on your cards and letters, and still others, total strangers, that you will meet once by happenstance, but you were supposed to bestow an act of kindness. But do we always get rewarded for doing what is right? Nah. Sometimes we get rewarded for doing what is wrong. Peer pressure has good people making bad decisions. Last thing, everyone take a deep breath. Last thing, everyone do this. Okay? Everyone do this. And then please, put it on your chin. And your chin is located where? You may take them down. Yeah, I know, exactly. You see, people remember what you do more often than what you say. They will know us by our deeds. Thank you so much for spending some valuable time of yours. I appreciate your kindness.